It was a quiet Sunday morning, one of those days when everything just seemed to slow down, like the world was giving you a break. I was sitting by the lake behind my cabin, sipping a cup of black coffee that tasted better than any high-end brew I'd had, simply because I was outdoors. The sun was barely up, the water still as glass, and I was lost in my thoughts, letting the quiet surround me. There's something calming about fishing, something deeply meditative. It was just me, my old tackle box, and my dad's fishing rod, a ritual that had been my escape for years. But, in an instant, that peaceful moment was shattered. I heard a screeching golf cart coming down the gravel path. 3 HOA board members, yes, you heard that right, rolled up on me like a SWAT team, as if they were about to raid a meth lab. And here I am, just holding a fishing rod, minding my own business. The leader of the group, a bleach blonde woman with a laminated clipboard and wraparound sunglasses, pointed at me like I'd just robbed a bank. "Sir, you are in violation of HOA Code 7B.5. Unauthorized recreational angling," she said, her voice as sharp as a whip. I blinked, stared at her for a second, and couldn't help but laugh. My fishing rod didn't seem like the kind of thing that would warrant a fine. But there she was, dead serious, expecting me to take this in stride. "Are you kidding me?" I said, still chuckling. But she wasn't joking. In fact, she doubled down. "The lake is community property, and you need a fishing permit," she said, like she was reading from some twisted rulebook written by the DVYL himself. I couldn't help but laugh even harder, which, of course, only made her more indignant. "Wildlife protection," she said, as if that was some solid reasoning. I raised an eyebrow. "Lady, the only wildlife I've seen in this lake are a few frogs, 3 ducks, and a catfish with a limp," I said. She ignored me and slapped a bright yellow citation on my chest. "You've been cited. DULA 600 fine. Further violations will result in legal action." At that point, I couldn't hold it in anymore. A full-blown laugh bubbled out of me, a laugh that felt more like disbelief than amusement. "You think this is funny?" she asked, her face turning redder than the sunburn I'd get by the end of the summer. "I think it's absurd," I replied, standing up and folding up my chair. I'd been fishing here for 10 years. This wasn't a clubhouse pool. It was a lake. Who even owned this place? She answered smugly. "The HOA manages this land." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My mind started to race. They think they own this lake? That night, I got home to find a bright orange warning slapped to my front door. It looked like something a cop would tape on your car if you were caught cooking meth. The letter threatened fines, legal action, and potential suspension of my community privy leges. I stared at it for a long time, wondering who these people thought they were. But I wasn't angry. Not yet, anyway. I was curious. Who really owned this lake? The next day, I saw the signs. Big, bold letters that read, "Fishing prohibited. Violators will be fined." They'd put one right by my dock and another by the tree line where I parked my canoe. My first instinct was to head back inside and call someone who could help. I reached out to Barry, my old college buddy, who's also a lawyer. He answered the phone, and I could practically hear the smile in his voice when he picked up. "Dean, if this is about the time I told your ex she could keep the dog, I'm still sorry." "No, not that," I said. "I need you to look up the lake behind my cabin. I need to know who owns it. Really owns it." There was a long pause. "You thinking lawsuit?" "Not exactly. I'm thinking checkbook." 2 days later, Barry called me back. It turns out the lake wasn't technically HOA property. 30 years ago, when the neighborhood was still just a bunch of dirt lots and zoning ideas, the lake had been leased to the original developer for community use. But the option to purchase it had never been finalized, and the holding company that technically owned it had gone dormant. Barry said, "They think they own the lake." But nobody ever actually bought it. A grin slowly spread across my face. What would it take to buy it? Barry, clearly intrigued, whistled. "You'd have to track down the successor to the holding company and make an offer. But it's doable. And with how bad they've mismanaged the paperwork, I doubt anyone else knows it's even available." That was when it hit me. This wasn't just about fishing anymore. It was about principle. These HOA people thought they could bully anyone they wanted, but they hadn't counted on me being the one who could play the game smarter. 2 days later, I was signing paperwork to acquire the lake. The feeling was exhilarating, the kind of rush you get when you know you're about to turn everything upside down. A week later, as I stood on my dock again, rod in hand, I looked at the fishing prohibited sign next to me and smiled. In 2 weeks, I wouldn't just be fishing on that lake. I'd own it. And when I did, their little rules would sink faster than a cinder block in the water. The next part of my plan involved sending a message they'd never forget. I didn't go public right away. I wasn't going to make a big spectacle of it. Instead, I ordered 12 handcrafted wooden signs from a local shop. They weren't just warnings. They were statements. Private property. No trespassing. Residents not welcome. Violators will be prosecuted. I had them installed around the lake's perimeter, and by the time the sun rose, the neighborhood was in a frenzy. The group chat was blowing up with people posting pictures of the signs and tagging Karen, demanding answers. Around 9 a.m., I heard the unmistakable sound of Karen's golf cart roaring down the road. She didn't stop at my house. She went straight to the lake, where 2 of the signs were installed near the community kayak launch. And as soon as she saw them, I could hear her shouting from the shore. "What is this? Who authorized this? Who's allowed to put up signs?" I walked down to meet her, and when I got close enough, I calmly opened the folder in my hand. The deed. Official. Legal. She froze. "I don't need to just do anything," I said. "This lake is mine. Legally. The HOA never bought it." The look on her face was priceless. She tried to pivot, but it was too late. The damage was done. She muttered something about calling the city, invoking eminent domain like it was some magic spell. "Eminent domain doesn't work like that," I said with a grin. "This isn't a highway expansion. The city's not going to steal a lake just because you have an ego problem." Karen was cornered, and she knew it. But the real satisfaction came later. The community started to see what was really going on. Karen's hold over them was slipping, and now, people were mad at her, not me. Then, in a final desperate attempt to rally the neighborhood, she organized a march. "Reclaim our lake," she called it. But by the time they reached the lake, 2 deputies were already waiting for them. The march ended in a disaster. After Karen's resignation, everything shifted. The new HOA president, Leonard, was reasonable. We talked about possibly doing a neighborhood day, and even though I wasn't about to undo my rules, I respected him for trying to rebuild trust. Business at Lake Liberty took off. Memberships poured in, and by the end of the month, I had a waiting list. It became a local gem and Karen's worst nightmare. But she wasn't done. Even after she left, she tried to start a competing nature club. It failed. The whole town saw it. She was done, and Lake Liberty thrived. And that, folks, is how a quiet man who just wanted to fish in peace ended up owning a lake, building a business, and standing up to the HOA's overreach. What would you have done in my shoes? Would you have fought back, or just let them push you around? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story on Store of Good Stories. If this story touched your heart or made you think, don't forget to hit like and share the video to spread this positive message to more people. And if this is your first time here, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of the meaningful stories we share every week. Your support is the biggest motivation for Store of Good Stories to keep bringing heartfelt and valuable stories to you. See you in the next video.